Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 2 of Daredevil. Be warned that this will contain a lot of spoilers, so if you have not seen all of Season 2 of Daredevil yet, go watch it and then come back and listen to this. This was a pretty awesome season. Part of me kind of like it more than the first season, which isn't to say I didn't love the first season. I love the first season, but obviously I'm loving this more. We have your obvious Daredevil versus Punisher. Surprisingly enough, I thought that was going to be a bigger thing because I was under the impression that it was going to be Daredevil versus Punisher the first half of the season, and then the second half of the season dealt with Elektra and the whole hand situation. But apparently the storylines kind of mixed. I mean, obviously in the beginning it was mainly just Punisher, but then Elektra kind of showed up at the end of, I think it was episode 4, and then the rest of the season was a blend of dealing with Frank's whole situation because he was put on trial, which I thought was very interesting. I don't know, I didn't expect that to happen. Because part of me was thinking he was going to run free the entire season. It's no, Matt took him down and he got arrested and he got put on trial for all this. It was a very interesting thing because it was he was being made an example of by a particular DA. Her name was Reyes. She wanted to basically use Frank as a means of bolstering her own career. I think, if I remember correctly, she was aiming for the mayor's office or something like that, and she was going to have a platform that is basically going to say we're against vigilantes, and he was going to be set as her example. I mean, because a lot of people are split down the middle about the whole Punisher situation. Some people were against him, but there are quite a few people who are for him because it's it comes down to it that, even Daredevil himself isn't enough because he beats down these criminals, but they get back up. Eventually they get out. With the Punisher, it's he puts down these bad people. Because you basically find out that, obviously the Punisher's motive for doing all the things that he's done is obviously because of his family. He's trying to catch, particularly the guys who were responsible for his wife and son and daughter's death. What had happened at this situation, as the season progressed, you end up finding out the whole truth. What had happened was they were at a park near a carousel, and when they were there at that same time, a deal was going down between the 3 gangs that are in the show. One was the Irish mob, the other one was the Mexican cartel. I don't remember what the third one was now. But they were all there meeting up because they were brought in by a distributor named Blacksmith, but he didn't show. The gangs kind of got a little antsy and basically opened up fire between each other, and Frank's family was caught in a crossfire. He even got caught a slug in the head. What you end up finding out later on, that this whole situation with Frank has been the DA Reyes just covering her ass, because basically that whole thing was her operation going wrong. She had an undercover cop there, during that whole meeting, and she didn't clear the area. She didn't check the area to see if there was anyone there, any civilians, because she felt like if there weren't any civilians, it would spook everyone involved, and, she'd lose her chance to catch Blacksmith. That's kind of what this whole thing, her whole situation was. It was her covering her ass. She falsified documents. She painted Frank in a bad light. I mean, granted, he's the way he is. He's an anti-hero. He kills people. He murders people. It's crazy what he did to some people, because you see, what was it? I think the cartels, he had some of their guys on hooks because Matt found them their bodies stuck on hooks and their stomachs cut open. He gutted them like fishes. So, he's not a saint, but she, had hidden away the fact is about his whole family situation, about him being a war hero, that he served in Afghanistan and Iraq, and he got a very prestigious medal for his honor. We also have like this season wasn't just about Punisher though. Obviously, if you've seen the trailer, obviously, I mean, well, obviously, if you've seen the show, it was also about Elektra too, which I found very interesting how this whole situation was handled because you basically had, because I thought like it'd be kind of split down the middle, like because I kind of heard that people were like tossing around that idea, like what if it was split down the middle, like the first half of the season deals with Punisher, the second half deals with Elektra, and I'm like I thought that was neat, and I was kind of thinking it was going to be like that, but it's like Frank got arrested like episode 4, and then like Elektra appeared at the end of that episode, and from there, there's two stories kind of melded together, like they were kind of happening simultaneously. Matt, Foggy, and Karen were trying to, help, Frank with his whole situation so that, he doesn't, he deserves to be in jail for what he's done, from a justice standpoint, but he doesn't need to be, because they were going to try and execute him because he was going to, that's who the third gang was. It was like some biker gang, but he had killed those biker gangs in Delaware, and in Delaware there's a death penalty, but there's not one in New York. So there was that whole situation. But they were trying to help him out, trying to, if he's going to be sentenced to life, then let it be, something like that. Try and prevent him from being like charged to the maximum, try to reduce his sentence. But at the same time, Matt is, helping out Elektra with her whole situation, which she tells him initially it's like the Yakuza, but it's not the Yakuza. It's actually the Hand that they're dealing with particularly. Matt wasn't, at the time familiar with the Hand. He didn't know who they were. That whole situation I found was very interesting because you find out about Matt and Elektra's relationship. And she is sweet and crazy at the same time because she got there was a situation where she basically caught the guy that was responsible for Matt's dad's death. And she basically had him tied up into a chair and let Matt beat the smack out of him. And then she's like, Matt, kill him. Take this knife and kill him. And he's like, I can't. Because the entire time he's beating on that dude. And she's like super excited. She's like, yeah, get him, Matt. Get your revenge and stuff. He's like, I can't kill him. And that kind of broke her heart and she left. But it was like, you're getting off on that. That's pretty twisted. You also have the return of Styx, because he's there to help with this whole Hand situation. And he reveals that Elektra has been working with him the entire time. Back when Matt first met her back in college, she was there under Styx's order. It wasn't like her and Matt met by accident. She was meant to meet Matt so that she could, essentially in Styx's words, basically prevent him from being distracted. Like that whole situation, I guess, was to push him into becoming the warrior Styx knows he can become. And this whole situation with Elektra and the whole Frank situation puts a strain on Nelson and Murdoch. It causes Foggy and Matt to have a falling out, especially because, Foggy's, hiding this whole, him being Daredevil's secret and it's and he's scared, for Matt, his safety and his life, but he's like, he still doesn't agree completely with what Matt does. And then you also have Matt and Karen actually starting a relationship, but eventually those lies kind of build up to the point, it causes a rift between our relationship, especially when she comes over to his house and sees Elektra in his bed. And we also had the return of Wilson Fisk, particularly him in the prison. He set up the whole situation to have Frank transfer to his prison so that Frank could kill this particular guy that's inside the prison. And this guy was kind of like top dog. He basically had control of the entire prison, even had the guards under his payroll. That all changed the moment, Frank got in there and killed him. There was that typical Kingpin moment where he backstabbed Frank and basically locked him in that cell block and opened up the gate so like all the other inmates in that cell block came after him. But he he killed them and killed them good, single-handedly. It was impressive. It's like, this show, blows my mind with just how, bloody it can get. Like, all the Punisher parts in his show were super, super bloody. We also have the whole hand situation, which I thought was kind of neat. I personally am not that familiar with the hand. So, when Stick explained it a little bit more, I appreciated that. That's particularly made for people who didn't know what the hand was about. Apparently, they were kind of started by some people back in the day who wanted to search for immortality. And from what I could, maybe I'm remembering this wrong, but they found it, didn't they? And that basically this whole war that Styx is having against the hand is because they're trying to find a particular weapon. That particular weapon is Black Sky. They're not sure what it does. Even the hand's not 100% sure what it does, but it is considered like the ultimate weapon, and they plan on, finding it and using it. It turns out, well, last season, Styx killed a boy, that was labeled as Black Sky. So I guess it was like he was a child that had the potential to become a Black Sky. But yeah, I know obviously Styx killed him, like, because Nobu said last season that the Black Skies are very rare. But we ended up finding out the Black Sky that they've been looking for is actually Elektra. And so it comes down to, Matt isn't willing to, kill her. Styx wanted to try and kill her because he's known this entire time. He's known since she was a little girl that she was the Black Sky and she needed to be dealt with. On some level, he won't admit it, but he wanted, to possibly keep her alive because he didn't want her to succumb to, like, what she's destined to be, That's why he kept her around this entire time. Because if he truly believed that, there was no hope for her, I feel like he would have killed her long before now. I mean, he said something on the sort like, oh, like if he knew it was going to end like this, he would have killed her a long time ago. It's like, no, you knew what she was beforehand, but he, thought that she can control it and be instrumental in this war. We have the fact is that Nobu is actually still alive. He apparently appears to be immortal. He does have a little bit of his skin burned on his face, but overall he seems pretty okay. There's multiple times through this. There's like one point, there's multiple times where it seems like he dies, but he comes back. Until the very end when Styx shows up and kills him. Obviously, we had that very sad moment nearing the end of the season where we have Elektra, her and Matt were fighting against the Hand as well as Nobu, and Nobu ends up inadvertently killing Elektra. Matt and Styx buried her, but at the very end of the season, we saw her kind of being brought back, which I won't lie, I kind of saw that coming, not because I'm familiar with Elektra at all, just because of that movie, the one with Jennifer Gardner. It's only because of that I was like, is this going to fall? Like, I'm guessing because that did that, and so is the TV show, I'm guessing that's part of her storyline. She died and she came back. Because, we see those hand members putting her in that tomb, that gigantic tomb thing we've seen periodically throughout the season. So, some other stuff that happened, we have, Frank actually did finally track down Black Mask, the guy that was essentially responsible for his family dying. It turns out to be like his superior officer back in the day when he was in the, military. It was the guy that basically got his arm blown off for not listening to Frank about, things are going to go sideways there. He didn't listen. Frank ended up killing 30 some guys to make sure that everyone got out of there safe, There was a point, when Frank had, was about, dragged the blacksmith into the woods, and Karen's there. She's like, don't do this. He kept bringing up something. He's like, what you did back then. The reason why this is all happening now is what happened. He's basically saying there, with everything that happened, when they were deployed, it was something he wasn't willing to share even with Karen, because, pretty soon afterwards, he put a bullet in Blacksmith, so. And at the very end of the season, we have Matt finally telling more so showing and telling, carrying the truth that he is Daredevil. It was a very interesting season. You got, there was just so many twists and turns, and just there were these. I'm stumbling on my words here. I like how a lot of the characters developed in it. It's like Foggy really stepped up in this season. I'm not saying he didn't step up last season, but because Matt was kind of distracted with the whole Elektra thing, during the whole Castle case, Frank, he kind of stepped up, and a lot of people, took notice of him. I mean, he potentially gets a new job, or at least offered a job. I'm still not 100% sure on whether he actually took it or not. But he was offered a job because of how well he handled that situation. You kind of see him stepped up. I kind of wish he was a little more understanding about Matt's situation, about Matt being Daredevil, because Matt was like, at one point he's like, you know what, I'm sorry that you feel the way you do, Foggy, but at this point I'm done apologizing for being Daredevil. This is something that's a part of me, and I'm done apologizing for it. It's something I need to be, and it's something the city needs me to be too. We also have Karen kind of stepping up and being, in my opinion, the new Ben Urich. Very interestingly enough, I think you see it in the first episode. Isn't that Ben's car she's driving? Because she says whose car? The guy that she's with is whose car is this? And she's like, it's a friend. He's dead. So I can only assume it's Ben's. I don't honestly. I literally was just watching the first season a couple of days ago. Don't even remember what Ben's car looked like. So that might have been Ben's car. I'm really thinking it is. And we also had Frank finally, stepping even further into becoming the Punisher. He finally is wearing that his symbol, which I am curious. The reason why that symbol exists is because he got the idea because it's from an X-ray scan of his skull, because they were noticing that the fact is that it has a bullet wound in his skull, obviously. So is that where he originally got it in the comic books, or is that something they just came up with for the show? Either way, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I'm just curious, is that something that's character-wise, whether that's something canon or not? But that's talking about the story here and there. I got some stuff written down in my notes that I kind of want to bring up. One of the said things is that I counted at the very least 3 Jessica Jones references in this season. The first being Claire. She references, when she helped Luke out nearing the end of Jessica Jones, when he, after being controlled by Kilgrave and kind of getting knocked out by Jessica, she took him and, ended up meeting up with Claire. And she took care of him. So she referenced, knowing a guy that's pretty strong. Number 2 is when Marcy and Foggy are talking. It's during the whole Frank's trial thing, and they were talking about how Reyes was, going to make her platform going up after vigilantes, and she was basically I think she was saying it was either Reyes or particularly the law firm that, Marcy was currently working at was, had their sights set on another particular vigilante, Jessica Jones. And then the final reference was the job I talked about, Foggy getting offered. It ended up being Hogarth, for Jessica Jones, being the one that offered him, it was offering him a job. So, like I said earlier, I'm still not 100% sure if he took it or not. There was a very interesting conversation. Another thing in my notes I want to talk about was a line between Frank and Matt. I mean, obviously, as Matt as Daredevil, but it was Frank was I guess I had you wrong. Daredevil was wrong about what? Frank said, I guess I was wrong about calling you a pussy. And then Daredevil responded, I was oh, don't go getting sweet on me now, Frank. I really love that. It's just after everything they'd been through, this is around episode 4, a little bit before he got arrested. So it's even through all that, he's still, that little laughing moment was just, I was that was a nice touch. Granted, though, that was followed by something pretty sad, because we found out about the whole situation with, particularly he told this story about his daughter, about how he would always read her stories, but after coming back, he was tired, and he didn't read her that story he'd always read to her. And he was like, I'll read it to you next time. And next time never came because, she died. So that was kind of like really sad. But, that's just some of the stuff I really wanted to talk about in this episode. I really enjoyed this season. I cannot wait for more. There is currently up a little teaser trailer for Luke Cage. It's like 23 seconds long. I didn't even know that was out until like at the very end when I watched the final episode. After it ended, it popped up on Netflix like, oh, trailer. I was like, what? And I figured it was going to be a teaser, but still, that's pretty awesome. Apparently, sadly, Luke Cage isn't coming out until September 30th. But, I can wait. I'm really excited. I really enjoy this. That's kind of the downside to binging something like this, that it just, once it's over. So you have to wait even longer for the next season. But I can't wait for the next season. I mean, obviously, there's going to be Luke Cage coming out, as well as Iron Fist. I'd heard rumors about the whole there being possibly a Punisher show. So if there is, I wouldn't mind. Though I wouldn't mind seeing more of those three, as well as seeing more Jessica Jones, because I love that show too. And then obviously seeing the Defenders. I'm still like, I've heard things here and there. I'm still not 100% sure because I'd said so previously in a video of mine that with the whole Jessica Jones situation that if there is going to be obviously there's going to be a season 2 because it's freaking amazing. If there, a season 2 won't pop up until like everything else is, started. Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and as well as the Defenders. Probably after the first season of the Defenders, then we'll get a second season of Jessica Jones. I don't know. We'll just kind of see. I have to wait to see how everything plays out. But that's about it. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.